Okay, we reached the 50, so maybe that's the limit that we can start with the webinar. And I welcome everybody to this week's webinar on regional seed mixes, which is organized by the EXPBIO project. My name is Dirk Albach. I'm a professor at the University of Oldenburg in northwestern Germany. And the EXPBIO project is funded by the EU Interreg North Sea program. And we are 8 partners from the whole North Sea region, from Sweden down to Belgium. And we are communities, we are universities, botanical gardens, and public research institutes. So our aim is to increase biodiversity in the North Sea region. We are all concerned with the lack of flower diversity, of insect diversity, and we are trying to find means to increase this, which means restoration of public areas. And when we're talking about restoration, seed mixes and regional seed mixes are an important part to re-diversify our region. Regional seed mixes is nothing new. This is something that has gained prominence over the last years, and that is why we have a number of very interesting speakers in this webinar series who have a lot of experience. And I'm very grateful that Jojanneke Bijkerk is today here for the first meeting. And we will all learn certainly a lot from her experience. Jojanneke has worked in the field of regional seed mixes for close to 20 years. It's lots of interesting insights, and I'm really grateful that you accepted my invitation, Jojanneke, and I'm really looking forward to what you have tell us about your experiences. And I'm certain that we will also have a lively discussion after the first talk by you, 30 to 40 minutes. Then we have lots of time for discussion. I'm looking forward to this. With that, I hand over to you, Jojanneke.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. Yeah, my name is Jojanneke Bijkerk. Together with my partner, Jasper Helmantel, we were able in 2007 to take over the company called the Cruydt-Hoeck. It was originally started in 1978. So yeah, I was 2 years old when they started. But we have gained some experience, and I'm very happy to tell you about what we do and why we do this. And I will try to answer your questions if I can. Let me share the presentation and take the correct one. I think this is it. So you should all see I think you can see the beginning screen with collecting and producing wild native flowers and grasses of local origin. Yeah, thank you. For recovery of biodiversity, this sort of explains what we do exactly. Well, proceed. Yeah, like this. We do this together with a large team of people. At present, I think we are with 45 colleagues now. We started just with the 2 of us, and it was the first 10 years were just 10-15 years. Yes, was just building knowledge, building equipment, collecting equipment, and land and people. Good people is very important when you want to create something like we have now. I have a short film, but I will not show it because it did not work very nice to view. And I will show you at the end of the presentation a link so you can look it up yourself if you are interested. We have a YouTube channel with some information about native seeds, but it's mostly in Dutch, so not handy for everybody who is listening now. Well, for myself personally, I am a real plant person, very keen on native plants anywhere in the world, but especially the Netherlands and Northwestern Europe. I like plants from anywhere, but and especially what I like about plants is their relations with the surrounding area. And so this collection of pictures is to explain what is most important to our business is to make this possible, this connection with all the different organisms and the wild plants that should be growing in our own environment. And to explain best to people in the Netherlands and Flanders what is so important for us to work on these local native seeds is because we wish to contribute to recovery of biodiversity as much as possible. And well, everybody knows biodiversity has been declining rapidly over the last 150 years at least, and it's stepping up a bit. But what we need in the future is more area, more surface area where natural processes can take place, better management of these areas, so more plants and animals can have a place to grow there and live there, but also make material available, plants and seeds in our case, to make recovery possible. So this is where we try to help. If you look at Cruydt-Hoeck, the process of the seeds is the part where we collect the seeds from wild populations, nature reserves. We have the luxury that we still have some nature reserves and we have some populations. They're not always very big. And usually we are allowed to make collections, and we're very grateful for that. From these collections, we usually set up production as large as possible, but sometimes that's only like 10 or 100 or a couple of hundred square meters on our nursery. But sometimes we can make it immediately a larger production, and from this we try to collect as many seeds as possible. And we don't try to make a selection in this, so every plant is important. Then, of course, we have to harvest in many different ways, and we do seed cleaning. And after all this, we have the selling of the seeds, creating mixtures. We have like, I don't know, 40 different standard mixes. But every year we produce design many different special mixes that are designed for a particular situation and area, because we find it important that the seeds, the species also go to a place where they belong. So we designed also mixes for the different municipalities throughout the Netherlands, and we are working on Flanders at the moment to make a good design for every typical area. So this is a little bit what our nursery looks like from above. You can see the barn where we do the seed processing, and in the distance you can see our tiny nursery. That's only a hectare with some it's not greenhouses, but polytunnels. We have about 30 hectares, and we work together with a group of people throughout the Netherlands that grow seeds for us with using our material. This is what it looks like from above. We also implement mixed hedges and other landscape elements to make it more natural, in a sense that birds and insects can shelter in the vicinity of our fields. Sometimes they want to nest in our fields. That's sometimes a little bit inconvenient, but we can handle it, I think. These are the production sites throughout the Netherlands. The black dots and the green dot is our location. I think we have about 15 at the moment, but I think 2 more will join us in 25. And sometimes we have to say goodbye to a thrower, but usually it's a very pleasant cooperation, because people are very eager. Well, these people are very eager to help us grow these native seeds. This is an example of an area where we collect the native material. It's a nature reserve in the Netherlands, and you just go about this area and check what sort of species are in the vicinity, where you can take a collection from later, in some later year or in the same year. And then this may result in a production. For example, this Centaurea jaccea from the nature reserve, the Noorderkriete, that's a Frisian nature reserve in the north. Yeah, because we usually have collections from different populations of Centaurea jaccea, also because they have different ecotypes throughout the country, different parts of the country. So you want to help make this material available. When we set up production, for some part, especially when it's only a small amount of seeds, we sow them in plugs. Here you see pressing pots, but we don't use those anymore. But now we have trays with plugs, very handy. And we try to plant out every seed that germinates on the nursery or in the field. So the polytunnel looks a bit like this. We have like, I don't know, 6 of them, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5 polytunnels, I think. And this is direct sowing in the fields. You can see with a tractor. And on the left above picture, you can see planting on the nursery. And left below, it's planting with a planting machine. We also do that a lot. Direct sowing, we try to do as much as possible. But there are some species that are very slow with germinating. And then we sometimes choose to just prepare the planting bed for a longer time. And because after you have done the planting, it takes a short time for the plants to settle, and you can start hoeing and everything. And especially the first year, it's important that you guide the plants into a sort of adult version, and they can become big and strong. And after this has happened, it is usually not so important anymore to keep everything very clean. And also sometimes it's not good for the soil, and also not good for the plants that you try to propagate. Not all the plants like it when there's a bare soil surrounding them all the time. So sometimes it looks a bit more like grasslands that we are producing. But many plants do seem to prefer this. Also, we don't apply any chemicals, artificial chemicals in our fields. This makes it very intense management to keep it clear enough from weeds, I must say. But yeah, we feel it's important that we keep away from anything that can damage the soil organisms. And well, we want to do this seed production to help restore biodiversity. And I think it also starts in the production of the seeds. Well, then we have harvest. We have the harvest in many different ways. With like this is cutting the product, and there's a small combine harvesting machine. We do a lot of picking by hand, but well, it's happens a lot with many species that we harvest them in parts. So not the whole field, but just a part of the field or a part of the harvest. Sometimes that is to make sure that you get a spread in the early developing seeds and the later developing seeds. Some seeds are very evenly ripening, but there's also a lot of species that take many months before, from starting to flower until the last ones have finished setting seeds. So they take all summer to harvest, really. And then there's the fluffy seeds. There's many species that, well, not that many, but it's a sort of specialty to produce and harvest the fluffy seeds. It's great fun to, we have developed different machines to make this possible. The machine you see right here, we actually don't use anymore since last year, because we found a better one to change into what we need. But yeah, this is also part of harvesting the seeds. And then you have to dry the seeds. And especially the boxes on the top right is what it looks like right now. We first started out with putting the seeds on the floor, but the polytunnels can have very different temperatures throughout the months in the summer. And also there's moist under the plastic where the seed is lying on top. So you have different. It's an okay way to dry seeds, but sometimes it gets too hot. And sometimes it gets a bit moist again. So it's not ideal, and we wanted to change this. And now we have enhanced our propagation so much that we can dry in these big wooden boxes. And you see on the right below, you see a Wintersteiger. This is a small a threshing machine. We also have a different method for that now. It's a band thresher. It's a machine with different, you're all very welcome to take a look sometime. But anyway, we do the threshing and then we make the seeds smaller so we can start the cleaning. And the cleaning looks a little bit like this. We have the small sieves, and we have larger sieving machines and smaller sieving machines. We have different machines that change can where you can differ the seeds on weight, for example, with using a suction of air. And I really like the one on the left below, where we can use gravity and speed and the shape of the seed to separate the different parts. We also have how you call it, density table. I don't know the correct term by just right now, but very handy. So we're always looking for better ways to clean the seeds. Yeah, it's always a very exciting process, and it takes a lot of investment and money and time to make it possible. So this is a bit about the production of the seeds. If you have questions about it, I can tell you lots more. But I wanted to explain also a bit to you why we choose to use local native seeds instead of, just have some seed and send it to Hungary and ask somebody to propagate it for us. Like, oh, please propagate like 500 kilos of this leucanthemum for us, and we can sell it here on the market. It's something we do not choose to do because we feel it's not a proper way to work on biodiversity recovery. It's like we still have some remnants left of the original and wild populations of flower species and grasses in the Netherlands and Flanders, and it's very important to prevent genetic pollution of these populations, to respect the presence of these wild populations, even in road verges, anywhere. I mean, just many parts of the country where those wild plants are still present, which is really wonderful, actually. And so by using these local native seeds, the plants that grow from these seeds are fit very well to our local organisms under and above the soil. You can think about insects, for example. They have very close relations to very many wildflowers. You can also think, for example, about the moths and micromoths. There's many hundreds of species who are usually specialized on particular plant species as well. And so that's just an example, but there's so many groups of organisms that use native plants as part of their living environment. So yeah, by using local seeds, you can have more interactions with between plants and organisms, and so in that way enhancing biodiversity in a much more effective way. And also the plants that come from this area are more adapted to our climate. Yeah, I have another example that will hopefully help you realize what we find important. There's some research that has been done comparing, for example, knapweed, Centaurea yacea, from different areas, and they found that the plant growing in its own area, on average, produced more flowers and more biomass, and it germinates, grows, and flowers at the right moment, which is very handy if you want to be compatible with the organisms in your environment. So they are biochemically adapted to their own region. Also think about the soil life. And also, well, it's a repetition, but by using local seed sources, the genetic deterioration of natural plant populations is prevented. So you can do less damage. What makes us totally happy is to, because we have many questions ourselves, like from how many parts in the Netherlands and Flanders do we need to collect from a particular species, and do we need to separate the populations and apply the populations to make it fit to the country. So this research done by Dorka, he will also give a webinar talk, which I will be very happy to attend. Well, this group of researchers work together with a very large group of people to collect all these plant parts from all over Germany. And I'm happy to say we will do something similar in the Netherlands, and hopefully also in Flanders. But to look at a species specifically and see the different genetic patterns is very helpful on how you source your material. This example shows Gallium Maluco, the hedge bedstraw. It's very helpful. And when we are collecting this material from nature reserves, there's also a lot of things that you have to consider in practice. First of all, you need to have permission, of course, and sometimes you need to have a special permit when it concerns particular species. Of course, the prime how do you say, restriction is that you should do no harm to the nature reserve and the populations where you're collecting from. We have 2 code of conducts that we try to live by. I will tell you a little bit more about the Living Archive, but you can check it out on the Het Levend Archief website, because it shows the handbook and the code of conduct of the European Native Seed Producers Association. I will tell you a little bit about it later. Well, and then of course you have to know about plant vegetation ecology, how do plants grow together at different sites, and what is a good wild population size. And you have to consider how annuals, biannuals, and perennials react to you removing seeds from the population. It's extremely important. Then we have this database that we created for Cruydt-Hoeck specifically. And I think we're still working on it very hard, but it's a way to collect all your data and use it in many different ways, like for the seed cleaning, and also to trace the seeds from the source to the person who wants to apply it in the field. It's nice that you can follow the whole route from where is it from and where does it go, and that you can also steer this a bit, say, okay, you're going to work on that area, then you need these particular seed batches to make it fit properly. So yeah, this is something that is of great importance to make it all work. We just last autumn implemented a new administration program to make this possible in a better way, because it takes a lot of work to connect all the information in the process. So, and when collecting material from the wild populations, there's some parts that are also important to the way we work. Sometimes populations are so small that we have to use meta-populations to make one collection. So we actually may have 5 collections of, for example, Vicia craca, and combine it when it's from sort of the same region to set up a new production. But usually we're not trying to combine different populations, only when there's like inbreeding happening, because the populations are really small and it's not feasible to collect a lot of seeds. So then sometimes it's very helpful. We have to deal with ecotypes. Ecotypes can mean it's from a very different growing condition, but not physically very different. But it can also mean it's physically a very different plant, even though it's the same species. In the case of the Netherlands and Flanders, it's also the difference, like growing in the vicinity of the Atlantic and North Sea, or it's growing more in the east of the country, and those can have genetic differences that can be very important. Knowledge, you have to gain knowledge about seed ecology, seed behavior, germination strategies, on storage behavior is extremely important. So we had to learn a lot, and we're still gaining more knowledge and experience every year. You have to set up a base production and create sowing material. And in this work, we just have to try not to be selecting the populations. So you don't want to grow garden seeds. It needs to remain wild as much as possible, and this is sort of a challenge. So you have to think about it from the start, and also in the way you have your production fields, how you harvest your seeds, how you clean your seeds, all the treatments that you do. You have to think about, am I selecting in any way, and how can I prevent it if possible? And try to have large populations so you can have a very broad genetic base. Also, we try to work as much as possible to max 5 generations or up to the 5th generation. And it's a sort of European or maybe worldwide agreement that you want to keep the seeds as wild as possible, and after the 5th generation, it's perhaps not so wild anymore. Depending on how much your production site resembles the wild situation. So there's the domestication problem that every native seed producer has to think about. There's research on this subject as well. Plants cultivated for ecosystem restoration can evolve towards a domestication syndrome. But what is comforting, really, that these researchers conclude, personally, I think, that genetic adaptations take place, but it is modest enough for the seed to be suitable for biodiversity recovery projects. So yes, because the alternative would be that for recovery projects, we would only use seeds directly harvested from nature reserves. And since very often these are very sensitive areas with populations that you can harm very easily, especially in the Netherlands, where we don't have a very robust system of nature reserves and populations. We think it not wise to restrict ourselves to direct harvesting. We do a little bit with some species that can take it, but still then we need to be careful. So I wish to tell you a little bit. How much time do I have? Like 10 minutes, perhaps, at the most. A little bit out, this is some of the last sheets anyway. The foundation, the Living Archive, het Levend Archief. It's a foundation that we set up in 2017, I think, where the idea is to have a national seed collection. It was not present in the Netherlands before, so the goal is to have a collection where all the native plants of the Netherlands are part of this collection. For some time longer, you also have a similar system in Flanders, for example. But at the moment, we focus mainly on the most rare species, and also on how to maintain and improve the remaining populations of these species. And part of the Living Archive and the National Seed Collection is the goal to produce local native seeds, to make them available for application in mainly gardens and public spaces, and sometimes the natural spaces, within reason. So this is what our role is, of course, for a large part. It's a very large consortium group of a very large network of people working with the Living Archive. It's totally amazing. We have like a huge project happening since last year, where we try to get at least 75% of about 500 red list species into the collection, and not just from one population, obviously, but from as much as possible suitable for that particular species. So this is something that we are proud to be part of, and try to support as much as possible. And then also important to Cruydt-Hoeck is the membership of the European Native Seed Producers Association. It's also something that started in 2017. Because we sort of met by accident and decided that it would be interesting to learn from each other. And so in a sort of way, we started a European group. We became an official association in February 2020. And the goal is to stimulate contact between members, and it's mainly about producing native seeds. So we learn together, we work together. There's no focus on seed exchange. This is very important because we have our own countries and areas that we try to cover. And the main goal is also to improve genetic quality and also quantity, because there's a lot of local native seed needed to help improve biodiversity. In the same time, we try to influence the law and legislation on a European, national and local level. This is sometimes very complicated also because all of these companies are very passionate about what we do, which means we work really, really hard, and it's sort of hard to spend time on law and legislation and talking to people who are working with these subjects. But you can imagine the local native seed industry is tiny in comparison to the rest of the seed industry. So the law and legislation is mostly directed on the cultural varieties and vegetables and all sorts. So yes, it's very interesting, and we enjoy this very much, and we learn extremely much from each other. It's very different experiences throughout Europe. We are with 22 members. Actually, yesterday we accepted 2 more members. We're very happy about. So we should be with 24 members from 16 countries. You can see the red dots in this picture. And I think we are looking for some more members. But you should have the sort of same aim as EXPBIO members. So we produced this code of conduct where we state what would be the ideal way to work, to make sure that you don't harm the natural environment and that you can produce local native seeds in the best way. Well, that was it for so far. I think that was really okay for the time. Well, please feel free to have questions if you have some.
Thank you, Jojanneke. That was a wonderful overview of your work, and demonstrated that the variety of aspects that you need to consider when generating regional seed mixes, from collecting to many generations of growing these plant species. I think that was
this is just
important.
a short version. Yeah.
All right. So I'm sure there are questions, and so if you have a question, I would like to organize it in a way that you just mention it in a chat. It's enough if you just want to have an expression mark there, and I'll then see that everybody will be able to pose the question. So let's see who is the first question. Maybe I'll start then with a question of mine, which I found very interesting, is that you mentioned that you're also considering soil and soil microorganisms. There's a lot of concern that you destroy soil microorganisms by cultivation and by the plowing and of the soil. So maybe you can expand a bit on how you can keep soil vitality for the seeds.
Yeah, I'll try a little bit. Well, for the most part, we try not to. We don't try to plow. It doesn't happen often that we use the plow anyway. So we cultivate and we use some manure and some calcium and some other bits but also we try to keep the soil vegetated with how you say green manure? No, green. How do you call that? Groenbemesters. It's the cultivated annuals that you can sow when you want to keep the soil vegetated, and it improves the soil, and you can build up carbon and sometimes fixate some nitrogen when using some clovers. Of course, there's some part of the year that we just have to clean the soil, the topsoil from weeds and seedlings. So that sometimes takes 1 or many weeks to prepare the sowing or the planting. And I think that's very harmful for the soil. But we don't see many options to do it in a different way. If we would use the plowing, this would be very harmful to the microorganisms in your soil. And also the structure of the soil. So yeah, we try to use this greening as much as possible. And yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of handwork, really. Yeah.
Right.
I see Jenny has put up a hand.
Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
Yeah, is it okay to ask like this? Or should I ask a question in the chat? Or
no, that's fine. We can hear you.
Fine. Okay, great. Yes. So I have lots of questions, but just I was wondering one thing about like how you said you usually sort of don't mix populations, and then there are some species that sort of propagate themselves vegetatively a lot. So it's sort of hard to know how many of these are actually individuals, and like how do we treat those species that sort of form a sort of more of a carpet? Like do you still only collect from one, say, a meadow, or do you pick a couple of meadows to be sure that it's not just one individual?
Yeah. Yeah, if you take, for example, well, we don't have like large productions of Cesium dissectum, but that's a very specific species that makes large growth areas for one individual. And sometimes you have to think, oh yeah, that maybe there's 3 individuals in this field. So you would need different fields to collect seeds from different individuals, because that would still be the strategy that we choose.
Yeah, in Sweden, I think Scorsonera humilis, another one that doesn't flower, doesn't set that many seeds maybe all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I understand from Scorsonera humilis that it needs to cross-pollinate because and also because you need a particular set of alleles, how you say, genetic markers. So you need a large enough population to have all these genes present in the population at all, so they will be viable enough to make, happy enough to make viable seeds.
Right.
So it's a complicated species, I think.
And is it? I mean, I guess because of that, I don't see a lot of seeds being sold of that species, I suppose. Do you know if anybody does it, or maybe it's just too difficult?
No. In the Netherlands, it's extremely rare. In Flanders also, I think, and it has no commercial interest anyway.
I see.
But yeah, I think it's only restoration interest that happens in the Netherlands with this species.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Annika has a question regarding mycorrhiza. So do you take soil samples from nature reserves for that goal of keeping the mycorrhiza and the microorganisms of the plants?
That's a good question. No, we don't actually. We know we need some mycorrhiza to grow some of the species. So we have been doing experiments with ectomycorrhiza, for example, for orchids. We don't produce many orchids anyway, but it's a good example. But we have found that if you have old potting compost, if it's like 2-3 years old, it already contains these spores, and it's very easy for the species to germinate in this type of soil. So no, we don't take soil, but I think it's more suitable for nature restoration, where you have particular soils. And also, yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, because I think most of the species that we grow are not that difficult, and may require a soil that is teeming with mycorrhiza. But I'm afraid I don't think our soil has this happening very much, because it's all original agricultural production fields, so they have been totally destroyed with everything, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, lots of manure and stuff in the past, and we've only been using these fields for our oldest field is from 2013, I think. So I think, yeah, change is happening. I do believe that. And perhaps it would be interesting to introduce some soil life from a good nature reserve to add to our fields. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very little known how specific the soil microbiome is for specific plants. I mean, with mycorrhiza, it's probably not that difficult, but with specific soil bacteria or other fungi, there may be some more specificity, but hardly anything known.
I think it could be play an important role in keeping your plants wild, because the soil that you're growing your production on, it may contain many different fungi, but of course it's a little bit more rich soil than in the natural situation. And what we also find, like in many semi-parasitic species that needs to parasitize other plants, especially when they're in poor soil conditions. And I think that could be similar to some herb species that they, in natural situations, they usually grow under more nutrient-poor conditions, and so they can also compete with other plants. And in that way also need those microorganisms and mycorrhiza to be able to live there and extract the nutrients they need. Well, in our production fields, that is perhaps more readily available up till now. We only give a little bit of manure and try to work with these green cover system.
Right. Yeah, we have another.
I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. We have another question by Philip.
Hi. So Jojanneke, so we are working with your seed mixture, and I have a question because do you have any recommendations how we can maintain a high biodiversity after sowing?
You mean in a field? Yeah.
Yes.
I think most important is that you prepare the seed bed in a proper way. So anything that could be competing with your future species is removed and will not come back very easily. And then also usually it's important to do the sowing in the late summer or autumn, because you have the very ideal germination conditions, and your aim is to try to establish as many species and individuals as possible in your field in a short time as possible. So even when particular species come back that used to grow there, there's already the space is taken. But I must say, in the long run, the soil is sort of master and commander of the population structure, together with the management, of course. So you can think, oh, I want this species to grow there for indefinitely, but it's the soil that decides what is growing there. So understanding your particular area is very important, and it's also very helpful to look at the plants that are already growing in the same area to understand this better. But
okay.
to keep it flower rich, I think management can be also part of the solution. So depending on the situation and the soil fertility and composition, usually we have to look at the vegetation, see what's happening at different stages. And the first 4 or 5 years is really just development. People think they can have a flower meadow in 2-year time, but that's only the start, really.
Right.
Yes, I was also thinking about that. And what's about, do you think that you mentioned the management at all? Do you think it is wise not to mow a flowering meadow before autumn, that you leave the inflorescence during the winter? Do you think this is a wise idea?
That depends on the soil fertility, I would say. You have to think that you have to keep looking at the vegetation, and can you see the soil still? If you don't see any soil and it's only a couple of species growing there, it's very important to start mowing. But if it's very flower rich and you can still see the soil a little bit between the plants, and it's no problem to do the mowing in March, for example. So it's very different for different situations, and you have to sort of look many times what is happening, what sort of decisions can I make best. And of course you can say, okay, whatever happens, I don't care, I'm just going to do the mowing every year in August or something. That's fine, but it will result in something that is, yeah, what the soil can provide. So yeah.
Yeah, we have
Thank you very
2 more
much.
questions.
Sorry?
Yeah. We have 2 more questions. One by Jenny. If you grow more than one population of the same species, how far away do you keep them from each other?
That's a good question. I think also it would be good to know about if they are
Wind or insect pollinated, or
yeah, exactly. Thank you. But on average, we would prefer to have at least 3 kilometers in between. Thinking about bumblebees. But there are also many species that are not pollinated by bees or bumblebees or larger bees. And the smaller bees only usually use like 100, 200, 300 meters to go about their area. So you can think about the pollination strategy, pollinator strategy of the species that help your pollinate your plants.
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah, but then you have like the moths, and especially the larger moths can fly for many kilometers. So when you have species that are night pollinated, then yeah, it gets a bit more difficult. And there's some species like Silene, latifolia, and Dioica that can crossbreed. You have to be very careful about that. But I think
right. So even if it's not different populations, it's actually different species, there's still a risk of hybridization, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's many species that can do that, so you have to think about that as well. Yeah. So yeah, but the same species, then it's also nice if you can have at least 500 meters in between, but try more.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the next one is by Theo team. Are your seed mixes focusing on restoration projects in natural contexts, or are they also applicable in urban context?
I can tell you we are mostly focused on urban context. So gardens and the public space is where most of our seeds are applied. but also on dikes and in water management areas and sometimes in agricultural areas. Not very often because we're sort of expensive for agricultural application, but I hope this will change sometime in the future. Yeah.
Peter asked, you pay a lot of attention to genetic diversity and area of origin, but how does that translate into sales? When we buy seeds in Belgium, do we get a subset of the seeds that suit best in Belgium?
That would be preferable, but I think looking back, I mean, we have been delivering seeds to Flanders for 30 years, and we've been doing this with Dutch seeds and German seeds. And now we want to improve this by using Flemish seeds and also for different parts of the Netherlands. I think, yeah, we always have the same aim to try to have a population production of a population that can fit to a particular area, and we can apply it to a particular area, but it's luxury and we are learning and building, and this takes time. So I think for everybody who's going to do this, you have to think, okay, where will I apply this seed, and what will be the best fit for it? So try to make these two connect. I think, yeah, that's something that is not perfect at the moment, but at least at this stage, we can already say, okay, yeah, this is from the south of the Netherlands, and this is from the east of the Netherlands, and we have some species that we would prefer to use in the north of the Netherlands, and yeah, we can make choices already with many species, and that's very, very nice. But we'd only do this when we think it's important in particular projects or when people ask about it. So for a city, especially for gardens and also many times for public spaces, we don't look too close to where the seeds are from because we cannot deliver for 100% for a particular area at this moment. It's we try to get to 100% autochthonous seeds in our complete stock. But I think if we get to plus 90%, that would be something that would be very nice. And we're not there yet. So it's something that we want to work on and feel is important. But yeah, we just try. Yeah.
Yeah, we just try, and we are trying to help you understand what's the best seed by yeah, doing experiments, doing analyses, and I think it's a community effort to get the best seeds for the whole European area. So that was very informative, and also thank you for all the questions that you posed. This was just the start of the webinar series. It already answered a lot of questions, but it also highlighted the many different aspects that are important to understand when when you do restoration projects with native seeds. And we are sure that there will be a lot of more information in the other webinar series. The next one is in 2 weeks by Tom Junge from Immerbund, and they are not producing seeds, but they are using seeds, and they are working very closely together with different enterprises and different public institutions. And also one aspect is then the pedagogical aspect of convincing people to use native seeds. And I hope that all of you will join then next seminar in 2 weeks. I hope to see you all again there and some more. So if you spread the word about the webinar series, we would be happy if you could do that. Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot, Jojanneke, for this wonderful webinar.
Yeah, a pleasure.